could I step in? And no problem, because I'm used to being thrown in at the deep end. I joined the Conservation Committee as co-chair in December. And I would say, rather than saying, what is it that we're doing? It's more like, what is it we're not doing? There is so much going on. Obviously, New Hope Bird Alliance focus is on birds, and a concern for the rapid decline of a number of species. And if we look around Durham, we can see why. And it's not just happening here in Durham, but incredible loss of habitat, acres being cleared of trees, planted with houses, with deserts of turf grass that are being mowed, pesticide, fungicided, etc. Invasive species being planted. And this is connected to birds because they must survive on insects and are adverse to light. So right now, the spring migration is beginning. It's an incredible phenomenon, birds coming thousands of miles and passing through here and overhead in the thousands and thousands. You can actually track this by satellite. You can track it by various other patterns online, and it's a really cool thing to see. But it requires humans to behave in a certain way, and unfortunately, we tend not to. So the Conservation Committee is focused on protecting birds and natural habitat and insects from the specific species level of birds to much larger overall projects. I thought I'd mention a couple of things about specific species, and please interrupt me with questions, and I hope that you might have suggestions for us also. The specific species, last year we succeeded in having Durham proclaim the year of the aerial insectivore. And those are birds that catch their meals while flying. They're catching insects. I thought at one point that they were doing a great job getting mosquitoes, but sorry, it turns out that they really like bigger insects because they get more bang for the buck and they don't eat that many mosquitoes. But a couple of examples on what we're doing with them. Purple martins, those are the largest swallow species around. They're beautiful, dark, glossy, purpley colored birds. And they live in colonies. They live together in separate little houses. And we've put up these, what we call gourd racks. So they're towers with plastic gourds now, but in the old days, they were real gourds that would be hung so that they're encouraged to live nearby and eat insects, even if they're not mosquitoes. So we've added a bunch of these to various places in Durham. One unlikely place is behind all of the hardscape and development at Patterson Place off of 15501. There's a bit of a retaining pond area there and open field, and that's where they like to live. So we put up this tower with the gourds hanging from it, and we have volunteers who check every week to see what's going on. They actually are counting fledglings. We have ways of deciding how old they are. And some of these birds were banded, and they had a very successful year last year with a whole bunch of new birds being born and going about their business and presumably flying down to South America for the winter, and they're now coming back. We've added a gourd rack at Sandy Creek Environmental Park, and I'll be talking a bit more about Sandy Creek. There's one now in Chatham County. We're talking to Orange County about adding them. And we're also hoping to be able to track where these birds are going. So Duke University has a project to install what's called a MOTUS. Those are initials, MOTUS, tower, that actually tells people where, as a bird flies near it, it picks up that bird if the bird has a band or a chip in it, and we can track individual birds precisely where they're going on this migration. Another species similar in that it's colonial in roosting as it gets ready to go back to the Amazon for winter is our chimney swifts. And those have become totally dependent on humans. They used to live in large trees that were hollow. There aren't any of those except for one. So now they live in chimneys, and they will pour into chimneys like the chimneys of vacuum in the fall as they come in just at dusk. And we have actually had viewing parties at local outdoor restaurants and bars that are very cool. What we're hoping is that people begin to be aware of some of the threats of lights being left on all night, uplighting. It would be the threat of pesticides. You know, yes, the mosquitoes are annoying, but if you spray your yard for mosquitoes, you're killing all the bugs, even if they tell you it's natural, it's still killing the bugs, and that wipes out the birds further down the line. So uncapping chimneys is another big thing and difficult for people because they don't want things going down their chimney, but these birds actually are really cool if they live in your chimney because they're raising their babies in there. And then big industrial chimneys, if we could get those uncapped, it would help these big roost gatherings of birds in September when they're getting ready to fly to Amazon. Another thing that we're doing to help birds is to install other nest boxes. So again, at Sandy Creek Park, we've just put in boxes for prothonotary warblers, and those are absolutely gorgeous, bright golden yellow little birds that live sort of in swamps above the water. Again, they're in steep decline. We're hoping that our efforts will at least protect them there. Again, migration starting. We're going to send out a notice, lights out. Please turn the lights out after 11. Please have no up lighting. This is very distracting to the birds because they're flying at night trying to get thousands of miles north. And then they rest and eat during the day. So a little more specific and really engaging our time, going back to Sandy Creek Park. I hope you're familiar with this. The park was the sewage plant for, I think it was Duke University was using it as a sewage plant. It's downstream, down Sandy Creek, which is one of the feeders into New Hope Creek, which of course feeds into Jordan Lake. And eventually Durham is going to be taking drinking water out of Durham Lake. The city of Durham is building a big intake valve. So this is a place to protect. But Durham is struggling with another big problem, which is affordable housing. And a developer has proposed a 140-unit apartment building, 4 to 5 stories, right next to Sandy Creek and the Sandy Creek floodplain. And it's putting the city council in a really difficult position because any apartment they feel might bring down the cost of housing. And in order to ask for this rezoning of rural land with a few houses on it, the developer is proposing some affordable housing in these units. Yet there's no sidewalk, there's no public transportation, and there's really no safe way to get any place except with a car from this. And it is right next to the wetlands. So the question is how much water will run off if you pave over all of the land that you can build on. They can't build on the floodplain, but they will pave over all of the uplands. And will more water flow off? They say not. We think yes, because of the increasingly heavy rainfall. In any event, what will flow off is going to be with gasoline, oil, hopefully not pesticides. So we are in the midst of trying to persuade city council to think about all the other places that affordable housing could be. I mean, my own neighborhood, for example, I said to Javier Caballero the other day, fine, bring it here. This makes sense where I live because you can walk to things and there's a big employer close to me. But not in this more remote place on a narrow road. City council is going to vote again. They had it up for vote in early February, but they paused to try to ask the developer to propose how it was going to protect the park and the birds by the building design, many birds are killed, billions of birds actually are killed hitting windows during migration, or at other times when the lights are on at night. So one question was, what were you going to do about glass to make sure that the birds could see it? They don't see glass normally. And the other question was, what are you going to do about lighting to make sure that the park isn't lit up, and the lights go out at a certain hour? The developer gave its answer late last week. We feel it's fully inadequate, wholly inadequate. And there will be the new vote on March 17th, and we intend to object because they didn't do what they were asked to do. Other really big projects, to try to stave this off, to look at what's happening with the Uniform Development Ordinance and make sure that it has sufficient environmental protections. And Preston, who's on the call, is someone who's going to help us a bit with coming up with language for plantings, berms, native grass, native trees, because that's one way of moderating the effect of development. And also, we have a program it's not under the Conservation Committee's umbrella, but it closely fits, of going to look at people's yard and saying whether it's a bird-friendly environment and telling people what they can do to make it a bird-friendly environment. Because I think it's going to be up to us at a very individual level, given the state of federal and state government right now, to do what we can to protect the environment and protect the species that live in it. So big task trying to respond to the Uniform Development Ordinance to make sure that it balances the need for growth inside the urban growth boundary with protection of the remaining environmental spaces here that birds actually use. I should mention that Sandy Creek Park is what's called a birding hotspot. Cornell University maintains an app called eBird, where you can record as citizen scientists what birds you've seen where. People have seen 185 species of birds in Sandy Creek Park. It's really an incredible place. And it's used by all citizens of Durham. Walk around there, you see a diverse population. Not everybody's birding, but a lot of people are, or they stop you if you have binoculars and you can tell them what you're seeing. So it's a really wonderful place, and not the place for a towering apartment building right next door. That's about what I have to say. Does anybody have questions for me, or comments or thoughts about what else we should be thinking about in the Conservation Committee?
I have a question. It's Shamika. Only reason I ever got to have this question because I just helped one of my friends clear out her chimney that was in her greenhouse. And she was complaining about how the birds go in it and mess it up. And when she goes out at night to put her wood in her chimney, it's like this big gust of smoke. Is there something that she could put in there to maybe not let them go all the way down? Or is it like something kind of like I'm gonna say, uh, some type of like mesh that it can only go a certain way? Because that was really hard to do. Like we had to take the whole thing apart. But I understand the concept.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I don't think that those are chimney swifts in there. These are crazy little birds. They do everything flying,
Okay.
including having sex. I mean, what? They're flying. But the nests they build are a few twigs
Mhm.
attached with their saliva on the side of a chimney, and they fall off. So it sounds like you've got something larger that's stuffed in there that maybe you need to clear out. What I have on my chimney, which some clever birds can figure out, is it has a cap to keep the rain out. I don't want rain coming down, but the birds can fly in and then fall in. They actually fall in backwards and grab the side of the chimney when they're roosting. So Shamika, I think your friend has something else that stuffed
Oh,
things in there,
okay.
and I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay, I'll let her know because there was some colorful words when we had to take Emily apart.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I mean,
Mhm.
I was going to mention something in Orange County, but then I realized this is Durham County, but it's hard, humans and birds. In Orange County, there's Blackwood Farms, Orange County Park. And people want to build, and they will build a disc golf course there. But it's going right through the habitat of two more rare species that are in decline. So we've been working with them to just move some of these holes so that they're not throwing discs over wood thrushes and ovenbirds. So trying to find that balance for people, I mean,
Mhm.
it's fair. People need to live too, but
And I have one more question
yeah.
because in that event that we did, she does have birdhouses, and she makes birdhouses, and sometimes she buys birdhouses when she goes to craft stores. I mean craft events. And it to me, because I'm not a bird person, I'm just her helper sometimes. To me, it just seemed like it's a one size fit all birdhouse, but she's an avid DIYer. So is there certain birdhouses for certain birds that people can put in their yard? Um, to like say, well, this bird knows to go to this one, or this one knows to go to this one, just so if some like to have a variety. Because she likes the birds, she just doesn't like the mess that comes with the birds.
The standard box is bluebirds. Not every bird nests in a cavity, but
Mhm.
bluebirds are one, and the boxes have sort of a bluebird-sized hole. And then if you have a bird like called the brown-headed nuthatch that also lives in holes, you have a smaller opening. So the bluebirds and the bigger birds can't get in, just the little nuthatch can get in. And then if you have something like a screech owl, which you probably don't, you'd have a slightly bigger box. So I bet you could go online and say, what size opening do I need for a particular bird? Or what are the different openings? And you could see the different diameters. That would be the difference, I think. Yeah, great question.
So
So
just let
Preston, I
folks
see
know that,
Preston,
sorry,
sorry.
I posted a couple of links. One is a really interesting website from Cornell, bird migration. You can actually see it happening live. And then the other is specifically about birdhouses, and they have detailed information about how to make them and for specific birds. So
Preston has had his hand up.
You're muted, Preston.
So you think I teach on Zoom all the time? You think I know how to operate it? I guess if we're having kind of like a free sharing moment, I just wanted to build off Jennifer's presentation about that spot. I'm building a prairie across the street at Durham Academy, which I hope all of you guys will have a chance to kind of swing by and see from the road the next year or so. But I think I just wanted to mention, as a landscape architect who works with developers, we are so lucky that Durham already has, and no doubt because of the hard work of New Hope Bird Alliance, Keep Durham Beautiful, and others, we have one of the more progressive bird friendly planting requirements in the triangle, if not the state. Somebody has gotten in there and made sure that when you're planting in Durham, that you're planting really densely, and that there is information about native plants. But if that development across goes in near Sandy Creek, um, I think that some of the priorities could be to minimize the impact. I can't speak to the affordable housing issue. That is just I just don't have a lot of impact in that zone with my career, unfortunately. But I think that if we can figure out ways to limit light pollution, really make sure that we make sure the developer understands, but even hires Preston to do the planting plan for that project, which I do a lot of times, is I swoop in and help these developers with that one piece of the puzzle, which they don't usually want to do. It's why so much junk gets planted. Um, to focus on native plants, focus on keystone species of native plants, make sure their storm water management device is very well planted. I'm thinking if if this ends up going in, those are some really key factors. And the third piece of that puzzle is having someone come in and help manage invasive species. And this is another big part of my career I'm trying to fill a hole in, is like, how do you connect with the maintenance crew following the first 5 years after a development installation? Because that's when you really have all those openings where invasive species really capitalize. And so I don't have any other kind of like point to this ramble other than just to maybe give you guys some insight into some of the ways I try and follow up to tackle some of these problems we all talk about, as somebody who occasionally finds themselves on the front lines of development. Yeah.
Thank you, Preston. We've been told that there could be something as called like a citizen advisory committee for a new development that does work with the developer as they start, if it's approved, and as they start to build. And those are really good ideas.
Yeah, a minimum of oversight will help prevent privet from being planted.
Yeah. So LA has had his hand up for a while. And I'm going to mute because lovingly, my next door neighbors decided to have that land blown right now. I don't know if you can hear it, but I can.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. So my question I put in the chat, just because you meant when you were talking about the Gore Towers for the Purple Martins, I mentioned that, you said that you were talking to different counties. The committee was talking to different counties. I asked about Orange County because I live in Hillsborough, near the Occoneechee, near the Eno, and then you said Blackwood Farm Park, and then talked about this golf course, which I'm 5 minutes away from Blackwood Farm Park too, and I just recently learned about the disc golf thing, which I already find egregious. But I wanted to ask about, and I had another question I wanted to ask about the engagement of renters on y'all's resources for folks who have, who are renters, who, just building not only like the consciousness around this, but just giving resources to those who rent on the properties that they have to be creating more bird-friendly habitats. And that is that's not limited to county, I guess, but if the committee has that, where are those at?
Okay, that's great questions. So we are to deal with Orange County and Blackwood Park. We said, hey, if you'll agree to just move these holes, because it's a done deal that there's going to be a disc golf course there, we'll help you by helping plant a native pollinator garden to attract more birds, and we'll put up a gourd rack. So hopefully there's going to be a gourd rack there. And that's the kind of compromise I think that we all have to work towards, understanding that there are people who want to play disc golf and there are not many places to play it. But your question about how to engage renters is a question I wanted to ask this group. You can see I'm an old white person with white hair, and that's what a lot of birders look like. There's a wonderful club called the Feminist Bird Club, which engages a lot of younger people. But how do we reach out to people? How do we get the message across to everybody, to the renters? One of the city council's objections or statements of support for this apartment is, let's have different people living next to this park. But they're talking about maybe 3 units, 6 units. And on the other hand, if the park is basically destroyed for what it is by lights and noise and window strikes, nobody wins. So that's just a great question. Would it be going to large complexes with information? Would it be, or do people have let's have an evening meeting? Everyone there are bird walks that New Hope Bird Alliance sponsors twice a week, and they're just open, free, anybody show up. Everybody's going to try to show you everything. Nobody's going to say, what, you don't know what a sparrow is? They're going to be really excited that you're there. But how to advertise those? So I'm going to throw that question back at you and the group and see what thoughts there are.
I might have a quick shameless plug. I mean, there's a burgeoning mutual aid in Hillsborough called Milkweed. mutual aid, and they have the really free markets that they host over downtown, and they will give out any pamphlets that are given to them. So if you have any information, I would definitely give the pamphlets that they give out, or give any pamphlets that you have to them. So shameless plug there.
That's great. I'm not paying attention to what's being put in the chat because I'm trying to listen to this others. So somebody else managed those, but I see Bonita's hand is up.
Yeah, I've always found in engagement a lot of times, if you're trying to reach a specific demographic, it's kind of going to where they are. And so, you know, if it's an apartment complex, if they're having like social things, maybe you're there in those social activities to be able to engage with the people. Because a lot of people, especially, well, anybody, I think most people are just living their lives and not paying attention to nature. And they're not paying attention to how their actions impact, you know, the environment that's around them. So going to where they are, it'll be easier than saying, oh, we're gonna have this thing and we're gonna invite them to come. Because if it's not something that they're thinking about, they're probably not gonna come.
How about the Durham Public Library? Is that, you know, we've been doing a lot in Orange County. We've set up bird feeders, and then members go there every Saturday and say to people, oh, you know, let me help you identify these birds. I don't think we've been doing that as much with Durham. Are the libraries a place that people gather?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. The libraries are quite active in Durham. There's a great network of libraries, public libraries, and they have all kinds of activities and things going on. And I think the libraries in Durham are wonderful.
So maybe feeders at some of the libraries and people, volunteers being there to say, hey, you want to know what you're looking at? All right, glasses back on. Tobin has her hand up.
Hi, thank you so much for this and for all the great work you do. I put a message in the chat, but then you said you weren't looking, which is totally fair. It's hard to do it all at once. So I'm just going to say it out loud. Well, two things. One related to what you were just talking about with the bird feeders at the libraries. I love that idea. I'm with Durham County. I could help facilitate that if you needed help. And also maybe doing some signage, right? So when volunteers aren't there, but it kind of pictures of common birds that might be at a feeder, so people could learn about that, even if the members aren't there, would be cool.
And I should mention, sorry to interrupt, that we're actually creating a Spanish language "What's That Bird" pamphlets.
Excellent. Yeah. But the question I put in the chat, you had mentioned about there's been some talk about creating an advisory committee to help with developments. And my question, I guess, isn't that what the planning commission is supposed to be? Are we just creating a commission to do the work of another commission?
Sandy Creek.
Just specifically for that.
Just as an example, the planning commission voted 8-2 against this rezoning.
Yeah.
The city council was poised to approve it until Carl Rist actually said something about, well, what are your plans for bird-friendly design? Because we had spoken to him beforehand. And that's when Javiera Caballero jumped in and said, let's pause this until we get specific ideas back from the developer. But had that not happened, they were going to approve it. So
yeah, well, I do understand the situation with the city council overriding the recommendations of the planning commission. I know that's a problem. But I just sort of wonder, then creating another citizen group, why would they listen to that group if they weren't listening to the planning commission?
This was something that was discussed at a meeting last night, and I'll confess I don't really know, but it's apparently an idea that you can, on a specific development, have citizens saying, wait, you know, have you look for this and,
Yeah.
wait a minute, you're not doing this right. That's what I know.
Do you and I don't want to side rail this discussion too much, but do you know who brought that idea up and in what context? What was it last night that?
We, okay.
You don't have to go all into it. If it's a long story, we can
So
connect.
when at February 3rd, like 45 people showed up
Yeah.
at the city council and it was chaos and we were scolded for not being organized. We are going to be organized on March 17th.
Okay.
And so it was the people who are going to speak on various points of view.
Got it.
That's who. So,
Okay. Thank
right.
you. Appreciate that.
okay, thank you, Tobin. Well, I'll follow up with you about the library.
Yes, great.
I don't know who's next. Is it Preston or Katie? Katie hasn't spoken.
Yeah, I can go quick. Mostly, I was going to say also the public library things, which I know people have echoed, and Melissa shared in the chat, which I don't know if you've seen, Jennifer, that there's the public library also has its seed and like plant propagation swaps, who I think would be great partners across all their branches, and the mobile branch are great partners for sharing information and connecting with all of the communities that they're like already embedded in and doing lots of work with. And then the other idea that I was just going to share specifically in wanting to connect more with renters is there's also, I think it's Triangle Wide Tenants Union, which is a group that is also doing work to organize renters. And so they, I think, would also be a good group to reach out to and see if there's alignment on that.
Great, thank you. Preston. Oh, you're muted.
I get so excited about my points. Sorry. Thanks for 2 rounds of conversation, guys. Hey, look, I've got this, I live on Gear Street. I've got this dream of putting gardens like my front garden, which is a kind of a bodacious pile of perennials. It's very bird friendly, very insect friendly. I have this dream of finding little spots throughout this neighborhood for putting that sort of bird friendly planting in. I've got wholesale prices. I can make it really inexpensive, but I could use some organizational help with just kind of, I don't know, helping me convince places like the Sauna House, which is brand new on my street and has a front yard that is perfect for a bird-friendly project. It'd be really great also to maybe do something in front of the library, which just kind of seems like every time I drive past it, it begs me for some landscape attention. And so I don't know if I'm just taking a risk by just kind of planting these seeds, no pun intended here with you guys, but I would really love some organizational help with appealing to Sauna House, the public library, and maybe some other little spaces in the old North. Is that where we are? Old North neighborhood, for projects. And I don't know if any of the organizations on today's call are the appropriate folks to reach out to, but I see some really low-hanging fruit relative to expanding the work City of Durham's already been doing downtown, to do some like low risk, low investment, super low maintenance native planting that I think really have this dream of making Durham a garden city. And I think we're well on our way. And so anyway, it's just going to like plant those ideas. By the way, if you guys would indulge me on a presentation one day, I'd love to give my Experiments in Piedmont Prairies presentation to y'all. That would be a lot of fun.
Great, thanks. Okay, let's see. This has been terrific. Thank you, Jennifer. And Preston, I think talking with Barbara Driscoll and Jim, what's Jim's last name? Anyway, the Bird Friendly Habitat Committee, I think would be the place to talk with about, and obviously Tanya too, about your ideas. So, okay, and one last question, Jennifer, do we have information on our website about Sandy Creek for folks that want to speak out or email the council before the 17th? I know we've sent out several emails about with details, but
There, I don't think we do. I think we are poised. We are debating back and forth. what to send out, and it should be sent out like probably early tomorrow morning to our
Okay.
members.
Well, that's fine. I can share that, or you can share, anybody can share it to this email list. That would be fine.
And there's also, a group of people have created a website called savesandycreek.org, all one word, savesandycreek.org. But it doesn't have everything, but it has some interesting analyses, and it has the comments from the city planning department, and so that is in existence. But I like your idea that we share our messaging.
Okay. All right, great. So time for folks who want to share other stuff or raise issues. I also wanted to invite people, if you are feeling from an organizational, if you're feeling the impact of what's going on at the federal level, I know everybody's feeling it personally, but feeling it from an organizational perspective, and you want to raise that or ask for support in some way, I want to encourage you to use this venue for that as well. And okay, so anybody have anything they want to talk about, bring up, share? Anything, totally open.
I'll just let everyone know that our $1.5 million Department of Energy grant has been frozen still since January 27th. So you can just cry with me. There's nothing to do. Just cry. We're working on it. We're trying to shake it free, and I know a lot of organizations are in that same boat, but it's definitely still bad.
So sorry about that, Tobin. That blows.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, Kim, just folks can just jump in, but go ahead, Kim. Sure. You're muted though, Kim.
Okay, try it again. So I want to let everybody know that Circular Triangle is hosting a lunch and learn at Highwire on March 20th. And we're going to be screening the film Refabricate. And so we're all about making sure things aren't going into the landfills and getting repurposed and mended and all of those words that are going to help us with our landfills. Anyway, it's 11:30 to 12:30, and the film is in half an hour on textile recycling, and then there'll be another 30 minutes of question and answers. That's again March 20th at Highwire.
And the DEEP Collaborative is hosting our spring session on April 25th. And I think Laura's going to drop the link to register in the chat. Katie's going to be facilitating it. And it's on queer ecologies for community, and it's open to anyone in the community and free. So you're welcome to pass that registration link along to other folks you know who might be interested. But let me or Laura know if you have any questions.
So, but I think there was a follow-up question if you want to respond to that about the grant. But Melissa's wondering if it's the EBERP grant.
The EECBG grant. Yeah, it is. And also we have an Energy Futures grant that's also still frozen. To the point where for the EECBG grant, we can't even get the money back that we've already expended.
I was just gonna follow up with Caitlin and Laura to say, yeah, I would love to see everyone at the Queer Ecology workshop that I'll be doing through the DEEP Collaborative, and also just to offer that broadly. A benefit of a private employer is that I haven't been restricted on the kinds of programs I can do now. And so if that's a gap that you or anyone you hear of is looking to fill, to do something, again, I specifically do teen and young adult education, but I've done versions of the Queer Ecology program for younger youth. And so if anyone is looking for like that kind of program or programming, that I could come in to like guest do or bring your group here to the garden. Specifically thinking about queer youth, queer, broader queer and trans populations, community members. That's something that I do, and it's a free offering. So happy to connect with anyone about that if you're interested.
So back to the birds, I'm going to be doing a birding series with Shay Kamstra with Durham Parks and Rec. 5 Fridays starting in last Friday in April through May in a different city park, Durham City Park, each week. If you know folks who are interested, it's a great opportunity for new birders, less experienced birders, just trying to expand our opportunities for people to go birding, because it's a wonderful thing to do, and birders tend to become environmentalists once they get into it, if they're not already. So at some point I'll share a thing, but it's on it does require registration, and there's a small fee. I don't remember how much, but it's all on the DPR website, but I'll share a flyer once I get one.
And I can share about Keep Durham Beautiful. We have Creek Week coming up, March 15th through 22nd. And we've posted that in the chat. And then we also have our garden tour coming up at the end of April. And we are still seeking a couple of garden nominations, and we'll need lots of volunteers. And I will say that we lost $40,000 grant, not quite the scale that Tobin reported, but we were a subrecipient on a grant from North Carolina State University, and they were asked to cut out their DEI component, so they cut us out. Although they are still able to continue with their grant as long as they cut out those parts, unfortunately.
So that's another thing for folks to think about. If there's some way that we can, with organizations that aren't subject to that kind of thing, support those kind of efforts in our area locally, since it's a primary focus of this group. We haven't done any training in a long time. It's really just been about, honestly, energy and time, but we have great resources at Nicholas and locally in the community, other places, and the experience that those of us were involved in the organization of all that. And so if folks are interested in that, everybody's energy is a real problem. It certainly is for me in terms of just, as they say, doom scrolling and all that. But in any case, that definitely resides with this group, that experience and history. So there are opportunities there if anybody has any ideas. Any other announcements, issues, complaints, positive things?
Nice.
Okay.
Jennifer, thank you. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for stepping in and enlightening us. It was really great.
Thank you.
Yes, and fortunately, you're gonna continue to come to the meetings, right? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so for some of the things, we can have continued discussion about some of those ideas about getting out into the community in Durham, so that's great.
And actually, New Hope Bird Alliance is forming a new committee for that kind of community outreach. So I'll share these ideas with them. We have our board meeting tomorrow night. It's great. Okay, let's see, coming up, we I have the schedule up. It's also on the website, but we have so this is March. So in April, we have Durham Public School Hub Farm presentation. May is going to be our annual in-person potluck gathering and roundtable, and that's going to be at Merrittmore Park. Is that correct? Is that settled? The park? Yes. Yeah. Okay. And then so that's May. And then our last meeting of the season, June, we'll have a presentation from the Durham Master Naturalist Program. We will not meet in July or August, and we'll be back in September with more great meetings. So thanks, everybody. Enjoy your day.